Bolhuis from Clump & Stampers. I am here today to share some tips and tricks with you for doing the Oh So Eclectic online stamping class and card kit. Now, some of you just bought the class, the tutorial, so you have a PDF with all the dimensions and everything you need to cut to make each of these projects, and some of you have the card kit that has everything pre-cut for you. But in either case, these tips apply to you. So I want to start out, before we talk about the cards specifically, talking just a little bit about the stamp set and the matching thinlits. I have to tell you, they are so fun. There's some stamps that I love to create with just because all the fun looks you get. This one I loved creating with because it was just fun to play with because there were so many different things you could do with it. So I want to show you a little bit about the set of thinlits because there's some unique things here. If you got the Eastern Palace thinlits, this has a lot of the same principles with it, but the dies will work together to create a bunch of different things. Okay, let's just kind of look at some of these pieces, and we're going to look at the flower first. Now, if you start out with just this flower die, this is what it's going to cut out. So it will cut out a image, or the image out of your piece of cardstock, but it won't cut the flower out itself. You have to actually pair it with this one, and you can cut them at the same time. They sandwich together really nicely, just like this. And when you run that through the Big Shot, then you will get this flower piece that actually cuts out and you can add it to the card. Same thing goes with the smaller flower. So here we have just this piece that cuts this out right here. Or when we pair them together, and let's do it the right way here, we put them together like so, we're going to get this image that cuts completely out so we can add it to a card. So that's those pieces. This background piece is so fun. I can see myself using this a lot, even on cards not made with this stamp set, but it truly just cuts the image out, and you'll see this in several of the projects this time, out of your piece of cardstock. It does not do this, but this was really simple to do. I just trimmed it out. I took my scissors and just kind of trimmed around it, and then I had this piece that I could add to something. Now let's see if you can see in the video. I got kind of a funny glare there. See the embossing here? Two of the dies, okay, this little guy and this one, well, let me look. No, actually, it's this one right here. All they do is emboss. So you'll see on the cards again when we get to them in a second, it doesn't cut anything out. It just embosses, as does this one diamond shape. So these two work together as well. So we can, let's see. Oh, I'm confusing myself. Okay, this piece, the smaller, you can see there's actually 3 pieces to the diamond. This one will just do the embossing, and we can, pair it together like this to get this shape. Or we can put these two together like so, and then we're going to be able to cut out this diamond. And if we want to do just this one by itself, again, it's going to just cut out of your layer. So that's what we get with that one. And then you can see we have the leaf, okay, and the different flower images. So with this one, because we have the 2 different colors, I cut out the powdered pink, the solid piece, with just this one, but then I paired them together and cut it out of the berry burst and got a piece that looked like that and just layered them together. Same thing goes here. This was just built by cutting out the stem part. One of these, actually I had to cut 2 of these, one out of the emerald and then one out of the powdered pink, and I kind of trimmed them off to put them together, and then married up these 2 together to get this top part and just trimmed it to make that flower. So I hope that helps you understand those dies a little bit better because they are unique. Let's take a peek at our stamped images. So again, a lot of different options here. Okay, so we can just do our big bold one all by itself, and I'm going to stamp that on one of our projects in a second. Or we can combine the 2 stamps and combine these 2 to get this look. And here I have it with the same color. Here I use black on the top for a little bit more dramatic. Or we can even work together and cut out a piece and start layering them together. So they're all designed to give you different looks. Your leaves, you can do a 2-step. I mean, you could do that one by itself. You could do that one by itself. or you can do a two-step with it. And you can stamp them directly on your project, or you can cut them out. The same with this project. So that's what I mean by it's just fun. You can play with it. I think the ideas are endless. And I had a blast designing the cards for this month's card kit. So let's go ahead and go through the cards. So we're going to start with number 1 here. And the only stamping are the words on here. Everything else is simply die cut. So you'll see I die cut the background, our little shapes in there. 2 of the flowers where we had to marry these up. Okay, so we cut them at the exact same time. Dies are flying everywhere. Put these together and I cut out of the peach and out of the berry burst. Cut just a leaf out of that one and the small little leaf sprig out of that one. Stuck it all together and added the bow. Best way to put the bow on here is I just tied it and then I added it on with a glue dot. Stays on awesome. Okay, let's look at card number 2 here. And with this one, we're gonna do a bunch of stamping and cutting. So the leaf or the flower, I only did the one bolder one. I didn't put all the detail piece on that. We'll do that on another project. But when you stamp this flower, you will see how you get all of these varied colors in there. That's the look of it. So don't think your stamp's not stamping right. So we stamped that. And then I want to show you a little trick for the center. I use Peekaboo Peach in the center. Now you're probably wondering where I came up with this crazy color combination, which actually I like. I wanted to use a bunch of the crinkle ribbon. I love this crinkled seam binding. So I thought, okay, what colors does it come in? Let's just make our cards in all of those so we can use little snippets of all the different colors. And I thought the combination came out pretty cool. I hope you like it as well. Now I'm using one of the centers to the flower and I could stamp it in there just like so, but I thought, it needs to be a little bit bolder. And there wasn't, I mean, there's actually 4 different pieces you can layer together here, but it wasn't giving me the look I wanted. So what I actually did is I stamped it and then I just kind of pounced and I moved it around. And I did that a couple of times, just kept stamping, 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 and it kind of filled it in and gave me the look I wanted. So that's how I did the centers. Cut them out with the framelit. Okay, we just used the one, the outline one, and it eventually you'll figure out that this little indent here goes right there. When I started, I was kind of twisting and turning to get it where I wanted it. But we cut those out. I stamped a couple of the leaves and cut them out. A couple of the kind of hash mark leaves, cut them out. Were cut on the inside there in the background, and I have lemon lime coming through. And then just put it all together with lots of dimensionals. Speaking of dimensionals, hopefully you have both sizes. Okay, this is our standard one. I swear, I think I call this my stamp and crack all the time. But look at how little the mini ones are. And we don't notice it until we really compare the 2 of them. And can you see the difference on there? So these mini ones work perfect on these leaves. I just put them on the leaves. I don't have to worry about cutting them or trimming them. And there's a ton in this package. So I use both sizes of dimensionals on quite a few of the cards that I make. So there's card number 2. And let's take a look at card number 3. Again, we've used this background. I just love the texture it brings to your cards. And you can see here is the leaf sprig. It's the one that looks like this, and it just embosses. You can see the outline of the leaf, one down there and one over there. Again, just adding some interest to our card. And then these flowers, I wanted to use both pieces. So for them, I stamped my more solid one first, and then I came on top of it with the detailed one. And I will admit this one was a little tricky to line up. This is why I like photopolymer. Oh, look at that. I nailed that one right away. You might have to practice a couple of times or use a stamp positioner. Stamp-a-ma-jig works perfect for it. But it was just a little tricky because of the red rubber. And then the same thing with the leaves. I used both pieces. So I used emerald green, stamped the bolder one, this one, and then stamped that one on top of it, and then used the die to cut them out, and then just stuck our card together. And again, we have a bow that's just tied and stuck on there with a glue dot. And our final card, number 4. This one I didn't use the dies at all. We just did some stamping, but we did some masking on this to make sure that these flowers really kind of pop. So let's take a look at how we did that. if you've never done masking before, you have to think in terms of what image do you want in the most forefront, okay? And that's the first one we're going to stamp. So this one's kind of up front, and then these other flowers are stuck behind it, so to speak. So we're going to start by that one, and we're using Peekaboo Peach, and I'm just going to stamp our bold one like so. Now, when I go to stamp these other two, if I would just stamp them, they'd go over each other and that wouldn't look very nice. So what you want to do is stamp on a piece of scrap paper and cut it out with the scissors. Now I've used this over and over. I keep it right in with my stamp set because you can, use it over and over and over. When you cut it out, make sure you completely cut this image out. Okay, don't leave any white space at all. I even go just a smidgen inside of it, and that'll avoid getting a kind of a white shadow. And you can see when I place it on here, I can just barely see my underneath flower. And you want to do that because when you stamp, this little ridge from this paper will leave a little bit that won't show up. So we're going to just hold that over it, and then we're going to go ahead and stamp another flower. And so there's the second one. And then we do the exact same thing up here. We're going to cover that up, and we'll stamp a third one. And now you can see we've got 3 flowers on there, and they're not overlapping, but it shows dimension. These look like they're behind. And then we just used Night and Navy to put the little dots inside. This one I didn't pounce on it. I just kind of left it so that it they kind of pop. Again, Night and Navy came because I wanted to use Night and Navy ribbon. Now let's talk ribbon. This one I did a little bit differently. I took just a piece, this one that goes across from it, and I laid it on there and I used some tape and I secured it on the back side. Then I took a second piece and I wrapped it around there and just tied a bow in it. So it's wrapped around this piece. So it's actually 2 pieces of ribbon. Our leaves, I used both of them in the lemon lime twist. And again, I did cover this up as I stamped them. You can see all my stems coming on here. So that way they really appear like they're coming out from behind the flowers. So that's your tips for card 4. I hope you guys like these projects. We'll probably do a second class with this stamp set as well because there's so many different things you can do with it. Have fun creating, and especially have fun just experimenting with the dies and all the different things you can do with them. As always, if you have any questions at all, make sure you get a hold of me. I am here to help you in any way that I can. If this is one of the first online classes you've purchased of mine, remember I have a whole library of past classes that you can still get. So again, let me know if I can help you. Otherwise, check my blog. Every day I post new fun ideas. So have a stamp happy day.